Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you guys here with me today, and I have a beautiful guest with me, Miss Katy Speziale, and so I would love to introduce her to you guys. So, Katy, do us all a favor and tell us who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into this space.
Thank you so much for having me here, Kat. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm Katy Speziale, and I'm an artist. I've been painting with acrylics on canvas for over 15 years now. My style is very abstract, surrealism, and I do some nature-based landscapes as well. Very colorful, but bright and vibrant. And I'm also the award-winning author of the book, The Empowered Creator, Embody the Divine Artist Within You. And what I really do is I'm here to empower people to truly embody who they are inside, their truth. And how I got here. So it was quite a journey. It started through, I was laid off during the pandemic. I was laid off from my job. So it really, it kind of makes you start to think because things are quiet. You actually have time to think about what you truly want in life. So I ended up becoming a Norwex consultant because I'd been asked by someone who I was purchasing Norwex products from if I wanted to become a consultant. And I'd said no in the past, but then I'm like, you know what? I have the time now. So let's do this. Let's jump in. So I started as a consultant, and my leader ended up inviting me to this personal development training. So it was this online training, a 5-day training session, and there was a workbook that went with it and stuff. So I did the workbook. The training was called Ignite Your Calling, and it was by Kathleen Cameron. So throughout the workbook and stuff, all the questions Ignite Your Calling, it kept leading me back to thinking of my art, which I had been doing as kind of, a hobby for quite a few years before that. And just selling at fairs, local fairs and stuff, but nothing super big. And I was trying to refuse what was coming into my head, and I was pushing those thoughts aside and trying to relay the questions to the job I had at the time, which was a cleaning position. And then I started digging deeper into personal development, watching all the videos, the books, reading all the stuff. And it led me back to those questions I answered in the first place. And I'm like, it hit me. I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I supposed to be doing here? I'm supposed to be doing my art. This is my calling. like, wake up. It's been here all this time. So then I started digging deeper into my art. I joined a program, which was called The Wealthy Creator. And that really got me thinking, like, what I actually wanted to do with my life, like where I wanted to take my art. And I also joined a branding foundations program, which was more of a self discovery process for me. Like, truly, it helped me figure out who I truly am inside. And like, which is still evolving every single day, but it
Mm-hmm.
really helped me solidify, like, what am I here to do? Like, what is it that I actually want to do? And one of the things that I realized was that I've always wanted to write a book. And like, that's always been in me. Like, back in the day, um, my mentor, I had like an art mentor who was just helping me when it was still a hobby. He was helping me like figure out how to take photos of my art and just like the basic stuff.
Yeah.
And um, at one of the fairs he had been in, he had his table all set up, and he had this book. He created a book, kind of like a biography of himself as an artist. And I'm like, that's amazing. And all I could think of was, I'd love to do something like that one day. But then that thought gets, pushed aside for years and years. So then my grandma actually, for Christmas one year, she wrote a book. She had been writing this for several years before, and I had no idea. And she surprised me with it and dedicated this book to me that was all about our family history, which was so beautiful. Definitely shed some tears through that. But yeah, it really got me thinking too, like, if my gram can do it, like, why can't I? Like, let's do this.
Yeah.
So that was a big motivator too. And then I started learning all these things through personal development and really thinking about my own process within my art and how I can help people discover their own unique styles and really bring out their creativity, because we all have these incredible imaginations, but it's just how we choose to utilize them. I've had so many people in the past come up to me and be like, "Oh, I wish I had an imagination like you, and I wish I was as creative as you." And it's like, you can be, you are. You just need to like bring that out and see it within yourself. So I really wanted to help with that. And that's through the Branding Foundations program that I was in. We came up with my framework for the book, which is my 4 eyes framework. So imagination, inspiration, intuition, and ignite. And
Mm.
that kind of, I feel like that's the entire process of a creative journey, in my eyes at least. So it really takes people through the creative process and starting with that foundation of their imaginations, and then right up to igniting like their confidence and building like their bravery and all that stuff that's already within them. It's just about igniting it. So I think that probably answered the question.
I love that so much. And you know what's so interesting is I've recently, listening to personal development pieces and things like that constantly, there have been so many people that I have talked with and heard of, especially lately, that keep talking about this imagination that I feel like we as adults let go of because there are so many other things floating in our world. And there's so many other things that are supposed to be more important that we have let it go. And it's interesting when I talk to people, especially a lot of those that COVID is what shut them down and like gave them the space to really think. There is so many people that in that space talk about how they started to be imaginative, how they started to kind of try to figure out what it was that they wanted to do. Like they kind of already knew, like you were saying, like you kind of have it in the back of your head, but then like these other thoughts try to like shush it
Yeah.
because that doesn't make sense. But this logical part of having this regular job and doing it this way, this is the way everybody does it kind of a thing kicks in. But it's so interesting to see those that have learned to re-grasp how to have an imagination, because I feel like ultimately that leads you into getting closer to what it is you want to do versus continuing down the path that our society says is the correct way of doing things.
Yes, that's an interesting topic about what society portrays to be the correct way to go about life. Like, after high school, you're supposed to go to college. But like for me personally, like I did that because I'm like, okay, well, this is supposed to be my next step, right? This is what
Mm-hmm.
society is telling me. So I went for basically the best option because like I didn't really know what I truly wanted to do in life. But so I ended up taking early childhood education in college. And I did the 2 years, but I did it because it was the best option at the time. So it
Yeah.
wasn't truly what I'm meant to do. And yeah, like school, I ended up like between the rules and regulations, I didn't really feel like it was a fit for me. Like I'm more out there and like expanded and like a little bit more bubbly than like the rules and regulations they have. So I'm like, this isn't for me. I love the kids and such, but
Mm-hmm.
the rest of it just didn't fit who I am. So I think really like during the pandemic, having that time to just sit down and really think helped me pause and think about, well, it doesn't matter what society's telling me is right, right in quotation marks, but
Mm-hmm.
it's what I truly want to do inside and what I'm meant to do. And when you're actually doing what you're meant to do, you can feel the difference. It's such a shift in your energy. It's like you're lit up and just like excited and grateful and happy to share with the world what you're here to do and
Yeah.
helping people expand through that too. And when you mentioned imagination too, I feel like a lot of people, as like, as children and stuff, were told things like, stop daydreaming and like, you can't do this. And like, we're pushed
Mm-hmm.
down with so many of these limiting beliefs and not intentionally. I mean, like from teachers and parents, they may not even realize they're doing such a thing, but it's what it's actually doing is like squishing us to stop using our imaginations as much as we could be. So an imagination, like Albert Einstein says, it's the preview of life's coming attractions,
Mm-hmm.
which I love that quote because that's just what it is. It's the foundation for everything. Like all the things we see around us, like say my coffee mug, the paintings behind me, like the canvas itself, mirrors, everything, it started within someone's imagination and then it was
Mm-hmm.
brought into the physical world. So if we're not using our imaginations, like we're not expanding the world,
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And you're so right too. I mean, if you think about it, like those that, created the airplane, right? Those that, created trains, those were all imaginations. Those were all dreams that people had. They just had the daringness to continue to move forward with it. And you're so right. As a society, if everybody is so stifled in this box of this is the way you're supposed to do it, this is the way you're supposed to go about your life, how are we as a society supposed to grow? How are we as a society supposed to create new pieces, to find new beginnings, to explore different places? You have to have those types of minds to help bring that out, which then create, right, different
yeah.
things for us to try, which creates more jobs, which creates more opportunities for people. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be an inventor and your imagination means that you're going to create something amazing, right? I get that. And at the same time, we get so stuck in the present moment that we don't take the time to dream about what it would be like if we were able to do the things that we wanted, which, in my personal development journey, that was something that was really brought to my attention was, yes, you want to think about what you're doing now, and it's great to daydream or imagine what life could look like, right? Because the brain doesn't actually understand that you're daydreaming. The brain thinks that it's happening now. So it cannot
Yeah.
tell the difference. And so it's a really great way to expand the mind, to step out of that logical box that everybody has been shoved into, and really just kind of think about the possibilities that could be right in front of you that you could be missing because you are so focused on the logical piece of it. Or, well, that doesn't make sense. Nobody would reach out to me because I still have to do X, Y, Z. And I think that that shuts a lot of people down, and they miss those beautiful opportunities to be able to do something that they may want to do, or they could explore to do, because it doesn't make sense to us.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just it. Like, even having the bravery, like you talked about, to step into who we truly are. Like, I know, honestly, I think that looking at things in the past, like times when I felt brave, really helped me be brave in the future. And I talk about that in my book too, because like we don't always see ourselves as brave and stuff like that. But if you find it within yourself, it's like, well, truly think about it. Like, when was I brave before, so that I could be brave again and do what I'm meant to do? So for me, like, my biggest, bravest moment that I feel like is my bravest moment was for driving, because I was honestly terrified to drive for so many years. I don't know what it was, but so when everyone was getting their licenses and everything, I was like pushing it aside, like I want nothing to do with that. So so eventually I started to learn a little bit, and it took me till I was 27, I think 26 or 27, to actually, like, it was when my craving, I don't, I'm trying to think of the word, when my craving for independence became stronger
Mm-hmm.
than my fear. My desire, that's the word.
Yeah.
My desire for independence became stronger than my fear. And I was like, I woke up the one day and I'm like, this is enough. Like, I want to do things on my own and not have to like rely on people in order to get somewhere. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew my parents were going to the city, like driving out of town to go to the city to get their vehicle fixed. So in a couple days from when I had that moment, and I'm like, you know what, let's do this. So I had asked them, I'm like, can I drive there? Which would have been the furthest on the highway that I had ever drove. And they're kind of both like that's terrifying. But they were like, okay, like let's do this. And it was my first time driving in a city as well, because I'm
Mm.
originally from a small town of less than 1,000 people. So like small town driving's a lot different than city driving.
Very different.
Yeah. So that one day I literally drove the furthest I drove on the highway. I drove in the city, put my dream vehicle on order, which I've never had a vehicle before that. So like do it right the first time. And then I drove all around the city that day and home in the rain and the dark. So that
Oh,
was like,
wow.
wow, yeah, like a whole bunch of new things all in one day. So I
Yeah.
realize that now, and it's like, if I was that brave that one day, I'm brave. Like, I am brave, and I can be brave to do so many other things in the future. So
Mm-hmm.
it's truly how you see yourself, and pulling that out of you and asking yourself those questions, like, well, when was I brave before? And if you actually sit down and think about that, well, you're going to go miles.
No, I love that. And you know what?
Yeah.
That is so funny that you say that, because when I'm dealing with my clients, or when I'm teaching classes around how to have self-empowerment and start releasing these limiting beliefs, I always
Yeah.
tell people to find those times in your life and focus on that, because then you can basically correct the brain to be like, no, I've done this. This has happened, right? So like what you're saying is no longer true. And it's so beautiful that you use that moment of bravery, and now you get to use it as you continue down your path to keep you moving forward, to remind your brain essentially that yes, while this may be scary, like don't forget, this is what we did last time. This is how scary that was. And we didn't die, because I feel like
Yeah.
the brain the brain is wired it's wired to keep us safe, right? And because of that, it tends to create this feeling of like worst case scenario. Even if we aren't aware of it, we have that feeling of like, oh my God, everything's going to burn to the ground. And
Yeah.
it's not that it's true. And it's not that it's something that you need to actually fear. It's just the brain doesn't understand things that are new, things that it's uncomfortable with, things that are unfamiliar. And so I love that bringing back an experience so that you can bring it back to the brain and say, okay, this is the same feeling that we had here, and look what happened and look what we accomplished. Why can't we do the same thing now? Like, I love that, because I think that it's so important for us to continually remind ourselves that while we are in this moment, more than likely there is probably a moment you've had this exact same feeling, the same scenario, the same situation, or something of the sort that you can relate to, and you were able to make it through. So why can't you do it now?
Exactly. And just that shift in energy too. Like I find even if I'm having like, I don't feel like the greatest one day, if I catch myself in that and just go, you know what? Like I don't want to feel this way anymore and like shift my energy in that moment. Like, yeah, today is a
Mm-hmm.
great day. The things that come out of it from there, it just ricochets. And it's like all these beautiful things start to happen because I shifted my own energy into believing that I'm having a great day. And then I do.
Yeah. I think that it takes the pressure off. And for those moments where we do get stuck or we do have a really crappy feeling, we can tag it for a moment and not say it was the entire day, which is so easy for us to do, right? I've caught myself doing it. I now get onto my kids when they do it, to my boys, of, because it's like the generalized thing. Oh, I had a crappy day today. And I'm like, okay, well, what was crappy about it? And it always ends up being like one or two moments. And so it's like, okay, so it was one or two moments, that's it. That wasn't your whole day. So what else happened in your day? Right. I love that. It's that reframing of what is so easy for our brains to get stuck in, like this cycle, and us having to constantly remind it that no, it was a piece of it. But it wasn't everything. So that way that gloom doesn't hang over. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Me and my friend Amber, we consider each other sisters, but every single night we've decided to share our appreciations with each other of what happened during the day. So at the end of the day, we'll both send each other like voice messages just through like Facebook Messenger and just be like, my appreciations for today were, and being in that mindset right before bed, like it really helps me think about like what did I truly appreciate during the day? And sometimes it's just
Mm-hmm.
little things like my boyfriend cooked me dinner and I really appreciated that. Or like I hit all green lights on the way, to where I was
Yeah.
going. Like, like sometimes it's the smallest things, but then it reminds you of that and it's like, oh, I was really appreciative of that. And it really puts you in this beautiful energy before you sleep. So then, even waking up the next morning, you're still coming from that energy rather than going to bed like angry or something. Right?
Yes. Yes. I love that. And I think, in my personal opinion, I think that is the ultimate control of how your brain functions versus a lot of people who go to bed and we're like, oh my gosh, I didn't get this done. I didn't get this done. Great. Now I got to do this tomorrow. Well, this is going to be pushed off now. We think that is us controlling the scenarios, when in reality, it's putting us in the lack. It's putting us in that anxiety. But being able to, and I do that all the time before I go to bed as well. I always think about a few things in the day that I am so blessed to be a part of. I'm so blessed to have. I'm so thankful for, before I go to bed, because it's that release of like a big hug for yourself, right? That so
Mhm.
many times we need. And it really does help for me. It helps me sleep better. It does help me wake up in a better mood. And then it's a lot easier for me the next day to be like, okay, what are we crushing today? Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't get this
yeah.
done yesterday. That's okay. I can add this to my plate because I'm feeling great. Versus, like you said, a lot of people get up and you're so exhausted from the night before. You're still thinking about all the things you went to bed with. Now that gets drug over into your day, and you immediately start the day off on that foot versus being able to look at it from an outside perspective and really be able to take it in and say, okay, what can I accomplish?
Yeah, exactly. And to expand on that, like even I found that morning routines are so crucial. And if I don't do my morning routine, like my whole day just kind of ends up being like a little wacky. And I feel like thrown off. Like my morning routine personally, when I get up, like I put my kettle on so I can have tea. I do yoga, which, starts to move my body, stretch it out, and like even the breathing, it just like it feels so good. And then I go
Mm-hmm.
for my tea, and then like I have like sinus issues, so I found that doing like certain facial massages helps with that. So then I do that,
Nice.
and then drink my tea, just like enjoy drinking my tea, the warmth and everything. And then I usually like read something and, start moving my mind a little bit. So I found that having that routine has been so helpful to just start my day off like, and just it makes me feel so calm and relaxed and like ready to take on the world after that. But I found days that I've missed that and I've chose not to do it if I woke up a little bit later or something. My whole day's off from there. And it's like, just do the morning routine. Like it doesn't take long, and like it helps exponentially throughout the entire day after that. So like why not start off right?
Yes,
And
I am so with you on that.
yeah. And something you said earlier too, I'm trying to think because I had an idea off of that too. Oh, it's about like thinking of things like super ahead of time. Like some people I find like dread stuff ahead of time, and it's like you're just
Mm,
like, living that moment twice. And it's like, why? Like being present in the moment so important. Like even when I was out for a walk the other night, my boyfriend was like, oh, we got to go home and do dishes. And it's like, why are you thinking of that now? Like, why would you want to feel that way while we're out enjoying this beautiful walk? Like, and I'm like, be present, like just, enjoy the walk and what's around you and don't worry about all this stuff you have to do afterwards. Just enjoy and be present in that moment. And then when you get there, sure, you could be like, oh, I got to do these dishes. But it's like, you know what? Even shifting your energy from that and thinking, I have dishes that I get to do. And I'm so grateful that I have dishes that I get to do. Because some people
yes.
don't have that. And it's like being grateful for those little things. That's something I'm really about, is being grateful for all the little things. Like even, having fresh like drinking water, like food on the
Mm-hmm.
table, shelter, like that is things that a lot of people take for granted. And it's like those are things we should all be genuinely so grateful to have in our lives. So that kind of went off tangent, but in a good
No,
way.
that's okay. That's like my favorite kind of tangent. No, I am all for the little things, and I talk about that with my clients, and in my talks and stuff like that as well. You're right. Everyone strives for those big moments that are going to make us happy, and it's like we don't realize that it's all those little things that we do that are what creates that big momentum or that big thing of appreciation. And the other thing is for a lot of us, especially if you're not appreciating the pieces as you get to it, once you get it, you appreciate it for like a moment, and then you're already ready for the next thing, right? Instead of appreciating the journey that it took to get to where you are. So I'm right there with you. I'm really big on that. I started doing that a lot when I was driving, because I used to be one of those ragers. People frustrate me on the road. And so I started being so appreciative of the simplest things, right? Like you said, getting green lights like all the way down. I'm like, heck yes.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. Or if I see someone that let's say their vehicle needs repairs, or I see that like a panel is missing or there's something, I wish them the absolute best, that I hope that it gets fixed, that something comes their way. And then I tell myself how thankful I am to be able to have what it is that I have, because I know what it's like to be in that place. I was the one that was driving the broken down vehicles that didn't always work, or you were constantly having to fix things. And I'm blessed now to have something that is completely taken care of. It's covered by not only insurance, but the company I bought the car from, right? Like, so there's so many things to be so appreciative of. And so you're right. Like when I drive, especially, that was the thing for like the longest time, to help me understand where I could be present and where I could be appreciative, instead of so honed in on and focused on the negative aspect of that part of it, because it's so easy to get drugged down into that so
Mhm.
quickly. And the more that you, like you said, you ruminate on it, or I love what you said about thinking and being in that moment twice versus
Yeah.
just waiting until you're there. That makes so much sense, because it comes back to, what can you actually control? And if I
Yeah.
can't control it in that moment, what is the point in me ruminating on it? What is the point of me getting upset or sick to my stomach thinking about it, when I ultimately know I cannot fix it in that moment? And I still have to remind myself every now and then, right? Like I get in cycles just like everybody else does. I'm just able to catch them a lot quicker than what I used to. So if I find myself having a down day, I can catch myself and be like, why? Right? Or, okay, well, what can I be in control of that could actually fix it? And if it comes back and there's nothing, then I'm like, okay, well, then why am I worried about it? I can worry
Yeah.
about it when it gets in front of me, and then we can find a solution. And you're so right. Our brains are constantly in this like solution mode where it's like, we got to figure everything out. But there are so many times where you create so much abundance and appreciation and an uplifting energy when you focus in the moment that you are actually in, versus always trying to stay in the future or always trying to fix the past.
Yeah. Even when I'm thinking about the future now, like if I'm, say, nervous about something that's going to happen, like speaking on a podcast or something, instead I tell myself now, it's like, I'm excited. And I just shift it to that. I'm like, you know what? I'm excited for this. Even if I feel nervous in that moment, I'm like, I'm excited. And just like saying that to myself and, saying it a few times, I end up being super excited. And it's like, yeah, you know what? I am excited to be here. Cause like, then it pushes aside that fear and like brings up the excitement that's like, that, is there, but like was, washed down by all the fear. So it's like, no, I'm actually really excited. And then I do like super well and I'm more comfortable when I actually like do the things after, because I
Mm-hmm.
shifted my energy in that way. So it's little
I
things
love
like that.
that.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
shift. I wanted to mention too, I don't know what made me think of this, but while you're talking, I also thought of how sometimes we get bogged down in perfectionism. And I
Mm,
talk about this in my book, like being an artist, like perfectionism was something, I always, had, and I don't want to say an issue with, but it was part of me throughout the years. And it's like, ever since I let go of the perfectionism and just like, when I'm doing a piece of art, like instead of focusing on trying to make it perfect, I could spend hours doing that.
yeah.
Instead, just truly allowing things to flow and just be how they're meant to be. Like, if I smudge across the canvas, like who cares? It could be fixed. Like I accidentally make a smudge up here. It's like, well, can I fix that? No. Okay, well, what can I do? I can incorporate that right into the painting. Maybe do a smudge on the other side to make it look intentional. There's so many ways that you can change it. And I found that when I don't strive for perfectionism, my art comes out so much better than it would have in the first place, because I am okay with making those so-called mistakes. Because like
Mm-hmm.
they are mistakes, they're actually opportunities for us to like, if we see them as opportunities to create something different than what we would have thought of in the first place. And if you're open to that, the things that come out of it are just absolutely incredible. Like I've done my best work when I've made, so-called mistakes on the canvas. It's like it's like, oh, this is so much more amazing than it would have been in the first place. So yeah, truly letting go of that perfectionism is huge in life.
I love that. Now, I have a question too, because I know that when you're doing art in whatever capacity, but for you for painting, it's also a way to, and correct me if I'm wrong, to deal with the emotions and other pieces that are coming up as well. So do you ever find that coming out in your art when you're creating it?
Yes, so emotions are huge in art. More so before than now, because I mean, now I'm more content with who I am, content with my world
Mm,
around me. I'm able to control my emotions and everything more. So I'm generally in a pretty good mood when I'm painting. But like before, when I wasn't into personal development and I was reacting to situations, and rather than responding, I was always reacting. And, if I stubbed my toe, it ruined my day and stuff like that for personal development. So I did use my art a lot as an outlet to get out all those emotions. Like even through, for example, heartbreaks, I would just throw all my emotions on the canvas. And after doing that, like sometimes I would sit in my room for like 5 days and just paint and be like, everyone leave me alone. I've got to paint and I've got to finish this painting. And I would finish that painting. And when it was done, it was like, wow, I feel so much better. Because like it really helped me. Like sometimes I would sit there crying while painting, but allowing myself to feel those emotions and really put them out there and get them out. And it's interesting with like using painting as the tool to do that. I ended up with an absolute masterpiece from it. So some great paintings out of, the heartbreaks or bad days in the past, but even days when I felt peaceful and I do like a peaceful painting, you can feel it because like my paintbrush strokes will be like super flowy and like you could feel the peace I was feeling in that moment. And that's truly what my art's about is like, I want my art to be a reflection of who you truly are. So, like, I think our environments play a super important role on our everyday lives. So, for
mm-hmm.
me, when I walk into a place that like the walls are completely bare, it's like I feel super like icky and like unmotivated. And it's like, oh, this is kind of draining feeling. But but then when I walk into a room that's like full of color, like my walls behind me, for those like it's a podcast so you can't see, but my the whole wall behind me is full of my art and it's just like an explosion of color and being around that, surrounded by that every single day, it makes me feel so motivated and like ready to take on the world and excited and happy. And if I'm feeling down, just look at one of those paintings and the feeling of your environment can truly play a role on your everyday energy, like how you feel. So I found that even for me, nature is a really important part of my life. So bringing nature indoors for me was a huge thing. Like I'm surrounded by rocks in here. I have like a million chunks of amethyst and beach rocks and all the things on every shelf. And I started making like beaches in jars. So just taking a jar and some beach sand at the bottom and then placing like my favorite rocks in it, some shells, and just having that set on like I have one on my kitchen table, one in the bathroom, and it really just like creates a calming space. So that's yeah, with art, I think it truly just brings such high vibrations to an environment. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that everyone should have art on their walls, whether it be mine or someone else's. I think art is truly, truly important in an environment to expand it and have that high vibration.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And, you're so right when it comes to your environment playing such a huge role. I'm really big on having things around me. I don't like naked walls,
Yeah.
either, especially in my office, right? Because I'm in here a lot and I have rocks and stuff on my side and things like that too. And it comes down to how my office area is organized and my house, how it's organized, right? If we have a really busy weekend and I don't have time to clean things and like we just got stuff on the counter and things on the floor that need to be cleaned up, like it really does affect the way that I do things because it's a constant disruptor from what it is I need to focus on. So I'm really big on, especially like in my office, like things need to be clean, paperwork has to be put up, everything has to have a space, because if not, and it's cluttered, my brain is cluttered, and that's how that amplifies out into my work. And I feel like it's the same thing with art. And I love that, your painting is your way of expression. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that there are thousands of ways to express yourself, to deal with your emotions, right? So for some people, it may be painting. For some people, it may be drawing. For some people, it may be writing. I know a lot of people that love to write. For me, if I'm having a very, very emotional day and I just need to get out of my mood, mine is singing. And you will catch me like in my car on full blast in my driveway. And my kids are like, what are you doing? But that's my space, right? And but it's such a release of the emotions. It's such a release of all the things that we have pent up. And we forget that we need to find our own art outlet that allows us to let go of all those things, right? Another one for me is being very physical. So if it's very beautiful outside and I can go work outside in the backyard, that's where you will find me, because I know that being physical, moving things, dealing with stuff, cutting tree limbs. My husband thinks I'm crazy sometimes. I'm sure he does. But doing that kind of work, while a lot of people consider that manual labor, I enjoy it because it's a release for me, right? I love going to the gym because it's a release. It's not just a routine. It's not that it's just good for me. For me, it's a release. And I think that people don't realize how much of a difference that can make in your world if you can find what allows you to release those pent up emotions. And there is no right or wrong answer. And we forget that.
Yeah. We're very alike in so many ways. So I too enjoy things like raking and, those kind of things that people would see as work, but it's like, I love it. Like I love to be out there doing stuff and like moving my body. And it does help you like release those emotions and like heal in a sense. Like even going out for a walk, I find I honestly come up with some of my best ideas when I'm in that state of mind where I'm just like grateful and like doing something I love. Like the one time I came up with an idea for my art when I was mopping a floor because I enjoy cleaning. So in that moment, I was just like, yes, like I'm, having a great time mopping this floor and loving life. And then and a painting popped into my head, and that's typically how it happens. Like I'll see like what it looks like on the canvas and I'll be like, oh my goodness. So I try and keep like paper or my phone or anything close by so I can like jot down my ideas quickly, because when the inspiration comes, it's like, oh wow, I've got to paint this. Actually, one of the paintings behind me, it's like, kind of has like a purple top and then goes into pink, and then like this beautiful light, like the yellow bottom with some white, and then this feather floating, a white feather. And the inspiration for that one, it literally, I don't know what I was doing at the time. Maybe I was taking a bath or something, because I find ideas pop into my head when I'm taking a bath, like funny things like that. But literally, it just like, oh, I'd ask the question. I'm like, what's my next move? Like, what should I do next? Because I wrote my book, I published it and everything. So it's like, well, what next? Right. Because like I was on such a high, like, yeah, like my book and everything. And, built up to it. And then it happened. And now it's like, well, what next? So I was asking myself that question, and I just kind of tossed it into the air to see what would come back. Because if you ask questions, you will get answers if you listen, if you're open to listening to the answers. Some people ask the questions, but then they're like, oh, well, I didn't get an answer. And it's like, well, were you listening? Were you open? So that painting literally popped into my head like an hour after that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my next move. Like it was just a splash in my head. And I'm like, I need to paint this feather, like for whatever reason. And then I started to paint the background. I only got like maybe a fifth of the way done. Like there was still lots to do on it, but I put it aside for a couple of days and was working on other things. And then I went for a walk and there's a paintbrush on the ground. Because I had asked myself before the walk, like, what should I do today? Paintbrush on the ground. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. I see. So it was all these signs and synchronicities that led up to this painting. It was so interesting. And then like a couple days later, I had pushed the painting aside again. And then out on my walk that day, there was white feathers everywhere. Every single step of that walk, every path we took, me and my boyfriend, there was white feathers. And I'm like, okay, I hear you loud and clear now.
How crazy is that?
I know. And then I found another paintbrush a few days after that on the ground again, a different place, different paintbrush. And I'm like, that's bizarre. Like, who finds a paintbrush on the ground in the first place? So to find one twice like that, it's like, okay, I'm meant to be painting. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the subtle hints.
Yeah, it's interesting how those things work out. And if we actually like pay attention, we'll see those synchronicities. But
Yeah.
it's a matter of being open to them and not just being so focused on like, what we have to do, but like focus on that present moment and just, feeling grateful and seeing what's around us.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it comes back to that present moment, right? And paying
Yeah.
attention to the little things, even the things that when you see it, you're like, that does not make sense. That is usually when it makes like the most sense. It's just the logical part of your brain. It doesn't make sense to. And I agree with you because it's those shots and those chances and those moments that I've done something different that more doors tend to open before me. And I'm like, what just happened? How did that happen? How did that come out of this? Right. So I've quit trying to make sense of all the things a lot of the times and just let it flow because yeah, you're right. It is those small present moments. It's those little bitty hints that if you can quiet enough to pay attention to it and listen to it, that is more than likely what your next step should be, what your next move is, or that like nudge that's like, hey, you should get back into this, or you should be doing this kind of a thing. So
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how that works. Like even for me, I was getting to a place where it was like, okay, it's time to get a job. But I'd pushed it aside for so long and resisted it for such a long time. And then when I actually got one, it was so interesting how it worked out. It was like the exact perfect timing, a job that is so aligned with where I'm going that I didn't know I actually needed to like, it's part of my journey, right? Like we talked about earlier, enjoying the journey rather than just focusing on like getting to that place, like really enjoying the journey. And that's what it's all about. So like part of my journey now, like the job I have is all about selling high ticket items that are non-essentials, like they're luxury items. And that's exactly what my art is. So it's helping me with that. I had wanted more friends in the area because most of my friends live out of town, and I got that through the job too. And all these little things, it was like, it's actually like once I took a look at it and it was like, wow, it's actually expanding my future of like, and bringing me to the person I need to be. And even like confidently speaking with people in like different ways, feeling luxurious. Even a simple outfit change because my outfits before were very, I was either comfy, like wearing PJs 24/7 during the pandemic, like literally lived in my pajamas. And then it was like, oh, I actually, have to get dressed and like look, professional. So it changed my outfits because I hadn't bought myself outfits in like several years because I still fit the same stuff for so many years. But then it kind of shifted the way I dressed, and it was like, oh, like dressing this certain way makes me feel a certain way. And it's actually expanding me to where I want to get. So all these little things I didn't know that they were going to come out of this job, but it's like, this actually needed to be part of my journey to get me to where I'm going. Little did I know at the time when I was resisting it, right? So
Oh,
sometimes the things that we're resisting the most are exactly what we need in that moment.
yeah. Oh,
So,
I love that so much. So if you guys
yeah.
get nothing else from this entire episode, it's that you can always find the little things in the present moments and you can figure out how it fits into your journey versus thinking about all the reasons why it does not. So Katy, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast today. I've had so much fun talking to you. As we come to a close, I always ask my guests one question, and that is, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice you'd like to leave the audience with today?
Oh, that's so let me think here. I feel like I talked about so much. I think truly, oh, actually, okay, there is one more thing. I think it's about the importance of setting intentions. I
Mm,
found that when I set an intention, even just for the day, that it typically comes true. I typically manifest what I intended if I actually place the intention in the first place, because then it gives me a sense of direction of where, like, how I want the day to go and what I want to accomplish. So even like before I start a shift, I work at a jewelry store. I'll be like, well, how much do I want to sell today? And it's like, I'd love to sell this much. And I don't make it like so set in the goal, like I have to. It's more of like,
mhm.
I'd love to do this and being in that energy, like, and placing the intention, like, I'd love to for this to happen today. And 9 times out of 10, it happens. Even when I bought, I'm wearing this red type of shirt. It's like a red, like burgundy wine colored shirt, and it has like super silky sleeves and kind of pops up in the shoulders. Like, I found it when I tried it on, I'm like, oh, I feel like super fancy in this. And like, it was little bit more expensive than like other shirts I bought in the past. And I'm like, who cares? I'm like, I feel so good in this shirt. And I know that I'm going to make the money back instantly from feeling so luxurious in this shirt.
Mhm.
And literally the day I wore it, I pretty much made back on top of, my paycheck, what I had paid up for the shirt. So it's like, when you're feeling a certain way and you set those intentions, it's like you're going to manifest exactly what it is that you're striving for. So setting intentions.
Yes,
Important.
yes. I love that. And Katy, do us all a favor then and tell us, how can everybody connect with you, find you, be in your world, and especially be able to check out your art?
Of course. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well. And my handle for that is Katy Speziale Art. So KatySpeziale art. So you can find me there on social media. And I also have 2 websites. So one's specifically for my book. So it's www.empoweredcreatorbook.com. And then my website that's more for my art and everything, that's www.katyspeziale.com or .ca, both will work. So yeah, and all my
Yeah.
art's up there and sharing my color with the world. So
I love that so much. And of course, don't forget, everybody, will make sure all that information is up in the show notes. So it'll be super easy to find both her book and her website as well. So you guys can connect with her. So Katy, again, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast and joining me today. I had such a blast talking with you.
oh, thank you again so much for having me. I had such a blast too. Thanks, Kat.
You're so welcome. And to everybody else out there, I hope that you guys got some amazing takeaways, especially this amazing piece that keeps coming back up of being present, of being in control of what you can be in control of in the moment and letting go of the rest, versus putting yourself through the agony twice, as Katy said. So I hope that you got some amazing takeaways. And don't forget, until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.